going on, guys? It's been a while. Today's probably a good day to make an update video. So this weekend I went to Pennsylvania, to the Poconos, with my family. I had a great time. Labor Day weekend, left right after my stream on Friday, got there, stayed there until Monday, got home late Monday. I even brought my PC. I was going to make an update video while I was there, had Wi-Fi issues, and I wasn't able to. I want to say one thing. The people commenting saying, oh, you disappeared again, this, that, because I don't post an update video for a few days, 1, 2, 3 days, whatever the fucking case may be. First of all, I'm not your dad. I didn't go to the grocery store for 30 years and not come back. That's not the situation that this is. I don't owe anyone anything. I don't owe you guys my TA. I share it because I want to share it. And yeah, I mean, and for free. You know, I've never asked anyone for anything since my time being on YouTube. I've stayed in my own lane. I don't talk shit about anyone unless they talk shit about me first, which that's a daily basis for me. But this is all free. YouTube doesn't even pay me. So, you know, the hassle of dealing with the most toxic community of all time, and, you know, the time put into my videos and, you know, screenshotting on my TA, getting my videos together and for free, it's just to get shit talked every single day. It's come to a point where it's not, you know, something that I find enjoyable anymore. I'm going to continue doing it for now. I'm going to see this play through. I'm going to see the AMC squeeze through. But when I tell you I cannot wait to be done with this, I genuinely mean that, like, from the bottom of my heart. Biggest regret ever was coming to YouTube to share my TA. For those of you that enjoy my videos and are thankful for it, thank you. I appreciate you guys. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Now, today was an absolutely fucking disgustingly wild day. And I'm going to get into that, but first, I'm going to talk about SPY. So, I have not forgotten about SPY. SPY will be going to all-time highs. I've been following it closely, and we are in the process of checking off the final symmetrical landmark before we go to all-time highs. But just really quickly, because I haven't done this in a while, descending broadening wedge for a year until you break out, retest, and then transitioning into an ascending triangle here, break out of the ascending triangle, and nothing but upside since. Once again, from October 2022 until today, SPY is forming higher highs and higher lows to the upside, broke both of its macro patterns, the descending broadening wedge and the ascending triangle. Golden cross on the daily happened almost a year ago at this point, very long time ago. I believe it was March. Yeah, March. Golden cross in March, have seen upside higher highs and higher lows ever since, and have not seen the 200 EMA in 162 days. So a very long time above the 200 EMA, very bullish here. SPY is going to all-time highs, and I'm touching on SPY as I previously touched on SPY because of the correlation with the meme basket. So getting into that, the 4-hour, or sorry, this is an 8-hour chart on SPY. And I've shown this before, the ascending channel that SPY traded in from July 2020 all the way until all-time highs in January 2022, just bouncing up and down off of the support and resistance of this ascending channel here, took you all the way to all-time highs, with the AMC squeezes being right here in January and right here in June. Breaking down from all-time highs out of this channel, you get into the downtrend here, which is the descending broadening wedge, which I don't have the lines here. The bottoming action, the climb back up, the breakout and retest of the descending wedge, and then the break of the ascending triangle being right here. None of those lines are labeled right now, but just going over the chart as a whole. And if you remember me saying multiple times that the bottoming action on SPY here is perfectly symmetrical. And this is symmetry. We're talking about a perfectly symmetrical move from all-time highs until today. So for almost 2 years now, a perfectly symmetrical move, bottoming action on SPY. The blue box here being the middle, the lowest low, one break above right here, both of the red boxes coming down, breaking below this horizontal line at 380, bouncing up to 418 on the dot on both sides where you reject. From there you come down to 380 on the dot on both sides where you find a bounce. You get the climb up to 430, break through that, you get the cup and handle in the green box, the green circle here, and then the rest of the move up to 460, the symmetrical equivalent that you're seeing over here. From there, I said expect a pullback. We got the pullback, and then just symmetrical landmarks here, the white box here, the pullback from 460 would be here, the bounce up out of it, forming a lower high than 460, the yellow box, and then now pulling back to the final pullback here, the symmetrical equivalent, this green square right here is what we're looking for, which is also pretty much at the bottom of the ascending channel here that SPY has been trading in since October 2022, which will be taking it to all-time highs. Exactly how you saw back here is what SPY is doing again right here. It will be taking it to all-time highs. And as far as the symmetrical the landmarks go, this green box here, this last pullback, is what we're in the process of doing right now. I'm not sure how low this is going to come. Could come all the way to the bottom of the channel. Could find a bounce at that 440 area. Sitting right now at 446. I would not be surprised to see a little bit more downside out of SPY before we got the reversal back to the top of the channel. And when we do get the reversal back to the top of the channel, that will be taking SPY to all-time highs. By the time SPY comes back to the bottom here and then works its way back up to the top of the channel, that will be all-time highs on SPY. I've covered the ultra macro on SPX. Dating back to the 1800s. I've covered it already. SPY is going to all-time highs and is trading in this ascending channel the exact same way that we saw back here while the meme basket was squeezing in 2021. So overall, we are in a bull market. SPY looks amazing. SPY is going to all-time highs. This looks perfect and trading in an ascending channel exactly how you saw from 2020 until 2022 while the meme basket was squeezing. Also a perfectly symmetrical move, golden cross on the daily. I don't even know, 5-6 months straight closing over the 200 EMA on the daily. Higher highs and higher lows since October 2022. Perfect chart here. Very bullish. We're in a bull market. All right. Now, moving on to AMC. And today was absolutely fucking gross. AMC today formed a new all-time low. Which I've mentioned multiple times that we absolutely do not want to see that. Now, am I bearish on AMC now? Absolutely not. From a, just talking about fractally speaking of macro perspectives, that's something that you really don't want to see is forming a new all-time low in a current macro compared to a previous. But as far as a technical analysis standpoint, being that we're in the middle of retesting a macro breakout and the slope of the trend, it is technically sound. It's a technically sound move. So jumping into AMC now, and this is the full macro perspective on AMC that I've covered from IPO until today. This first pop that you see here is the equivalent of the January 2021 squeeze that you're seeing here. The pullback here into the W, as you see here, and then the June squeeze equivalent would be right here. From there, you get the V shape, forming a lower high that you're seeing here, and then you get the macro break right here in this blue box that you're seeing here. And then the descending wedge. So this played out obviously much faster in the current cycle than it did back here. This was an 8-year macro compared to a 2-year macro that we're currently trading in. So the current macro is we're running through it much faster than the previous. And the reason being is that the volume of the current macro is much higher than the previous, and speed will be relative to volume on a macro basis. So I figured I would just throw that in there. But getting back into the actual macro perspective, this blue box here being the macro break, where you actually get into the downtrend. So you're trending up this whole time. This is an uptrend. You're trending up. Both your peaks here, the equivalents of them here. This is an uptrend here. Even the pullback into the flag, this is an uptrend here in the flag before you actually break down into the downtrend, which is a descending wedge in both cycles, just ping-ponging, laddering down back and forth all the way until support meets resistance, where you break out, retest, and squeeze, the January squeeze equivalent that we're now looking for, and the comparable of the current cycle from the breakdown in the flag. This uptrend here, this is a flag from the June highs that we broke down from, and since then we've been in nothing but downtrend, forming lower highs and lower lows, exactly how you saw in the previous macro right here. And we actually broke out and now in the middle of the retest. When this retest confirms, we will be squeezing. So moving on until the actual moving on to the actual breakout and retest, and with some of the most important halts that we've seen on AMC. So obviously we got halted in January and June on both peak days. Here is the flag from the June highs that we broke down from, and then the descending resistance and the descending support, the descending wedge that we're trading in. So coming down to support here, very choppy down here. You find the bounce back off to the top of the descending wedge, where we got halted. Come back down to support, again chopping down here on support. Work your way back up to the top, halted again, come back down into the final iteration, and this is the bilateral triangle that we spent almost a year in, just ping-ponging back and forth, a very tight range here. Halted here as well, coming close to the top of the descending wedge. Every time we got near this resistance line here, this top resistance line, we were halted, because this is the macro resistance on AMC. So halted, halted, halted every time you came close to it. The bilateral triangle, which actually broke us out of the descending wedge here. The breakout of the triangle coinciding with the breakout of the wedge. Again, halted here to come down and retest, which we are now in the process of doing. So from the halt here, you retest the bilateral triangle, confirm, find a bounce off, and then knife to retest the wedge. So just zooming in on this a little bit more. Here is the descending wedge here. Again, here are the halts, some of the most important halts in my opinion. And here is the breakout of the bilateral triangle and the wedge here. And now coming down to retest. Now, when we got the first bounce off the wedge here, the 17% move off, I assumed that was the bottom, because that would make sense. This is a previous macro resistance now acting as support, which held up here a 17% bounce, looked great, and now today we knifed even more, but we're still above the trend here. So this, on a technical analysis standpoint, this looks perfect. We did form a lower low today. I did not want to see that by any means. By any means, I did not want to see that, but we still are on top of the previous resistance acting as support, which is good. That is bullish. Really quickly, I want to talk about something else, because this is very important and this is a big deal. So this is not the full macro, but just rather the downtrend from 2017 until we squeezed in 2021, and then the current downtrend, the descending wedge here. And really here, I'm just focusing on the volume profile, which the volume, again, of the previous macro was pretty much non-existent all the way through, especially through this downtrend, until you got to the flat portion where volume starts to pick up. You see some volume spikes here, really starts to pick up here when you break out, and then the January squeeze being all-time high volume on AMC. Then the pullback, the consolidation from that squeeze, volume cools off, and then we get another volume spike on the June squeeze, and then from that, the June squeeze, again, just pulling back into the new macro, the downtrend, have seen lower and lower volume all the way through this, all the way down to the end, where volume was pretty much non-existent here. You could see the peaks here are getting lower and lower and lower all the way through. Volume is in a descending trend here, descending volume all the way through this, all the way down to the bottom here where it was pretty much non-existent. This is the breakout move here. The spike is the breakout move, and then the retest right now, the volume is through the fucking roof. Today was the highest volume day that we've seen since June 2nd, 2021, right here. The June peak, today's volume, split adjusted volume today was roughly 830 million. The highest volume day that we have seen since June 2nd, 2021, the June peak here. So volume is picking up again, right? So very low volume all the way through this, and now it's picking up just the same way you saw back here, very low volume all the way through the wedge, and then towards the end of the wedge where support is meeting resistance, volume starts to pick up into the squeeze where you have all-time high volume. Again, the June squeeze, you get another volume pop, and then descending volume all the way through, and now picking up again, sitting at January and June 2021 levels, the volume profile right now, in the middle of the retest of the macro. So this looks very, very good. Moving on to the weekly and the OBV on the weekly. So I just went over the volume and how the volume is now sitting at January and June levels on a daily basis. 830 million volume today, split adjusted on a minus 40% day, retesting a macro breakout. As well as the volume OBV on the weekly has broken out and retested and bounced off and is still sitting pretty much at all-time highs. Weekly OBV is pretty much sitting at all-time highs right now, while we just formed a new all-time low on AMC today. And just from a historical standpoint here, increasing OBV has been a very good indication for upside in price action on AMC stock. So the breakout and retest on the weekly of the OBV is a very good sign, especially while we're in the process of the breakout and retest of the macro just on the stock, the price action. So this looks very good. Now, getting into the retest now. And again, this wedge that you're seeing here is the macro wedge, which is right here. This is the macro downtrend on AMC, the descending wedge. Very strong resistance up top, very strong support on the bottom, ping-ponging back and forth here. Very, very strong resistance, even towards the end, struggling to break out here. Finally got the breakout, tested once here, played out the rest of the triangle, broke out of it, and now retesting the previous resistance as support. Now, here is the pop through from the bilateral triangle, and this is while the bilateral triangle support was meeting resistance here. We got the breakout of the triangle coinciding with the breakout of the wedge, and then the retest we're now in the process of going through right now. So there is a descending trend on the retest here, which is this red line here, which is pinching us down. This resistance line is pinching us down to the previous resistance, the macro, acting as support now. So the first test being right here, the second test being right here, and now it looks like we're coming down for a third test of this trend. And this descending resistance of the retest here is pinching us down to the macro, the previous macro resistance now acting as support. So there's a couple important dates here. Number one, September 12th. September 12th, the support of the previous macro and the resistance of the retest are meeting on September 12th. After that, September 27th, this descending trend goes to zero. And what I mean by that, and I could really quickly show it, how we had a descending trend here, the descending wedge that you're seeing here in the previous macro. This top trend was running towards zero and actually very close to getting to zero. I believe right here it is at zero actually. And in the current macro, this descending trend is heading for zero. And the day that this trend is hitting zero is September 27th, which is only 2 weeks away. So this descending trend is the macro pattern on AMC. This descending wedge is hitting zero in 2 weeks, and the retest that we're in the process of is meeting support September 12th. So two important dates to keep in mind. The fact that this is going to zero is not a bad thing. I previously just showed you in the last macro, same story. Descending wedge heading for zero, descending wedge heading for zero, squeeze at the end of it. Breakout, retest, and squeeze. So that is not a bad thing. I'm just pointing it out that the trend, the macro trend on AMC, will be hitting zero in 2 weeks. Do I think AMC is going to zero? No. As far as price action to come, I wouldn't be surprised if the bottom's not in. Just as far as this trend goes, you know, testing this trend pretty heavily here. This was trying to break out, finally got the poke through. First test there, and now second test, and it looks like we're coming down for a third test. While at this point here where support meets resistance is roughly $6. Now, I'm not saying we're going to get pinched down here to $6, but I wouldn't be surprised if the bottom is not in at the moment, and we will be coming down to retest this trend again. I wouldn't be shocked at all. At this point, forming a new all-time low today, I would not be shocked at all. We really, really want to hold this trend, though. I don't want to break through this trend. I don't think we're going to, though. Just pointing that out. As far as the tracking goes, and nothing has changed about this, so really quickly getting into that. This is the breakout retest iteration of the January 2021 cycle leading to the squeeze, and the current cycle here. I've covered this multiple times. Movement's perfect. The gap up, the wick, the top of the move. Come down to the red, the first stair step, the uptrend. You break below it, reject, and this is where we left off, and here is updated. So again, the first step, red to blue, the uptrend, higher lows, you break below, come back up and reject, break below, come back up and reject, and then looking for the gap down to the white line. Obviously we gapped much lower. I've gone over all the reasons multiple times. I'm not going to go over it again. Just as far as a tracking standpoint goes, the gap down that we got, the price action is behaving exactly how we want to see. The uptrend from the gap down, the uptrend, the downtrend. And as far as the tracking goes, this red box here, I think would be the equivalent of this red box here. So the first low, the bounce up and flat. So the first low, the bounce up and flat. The lower low that you're seeing here, bounce up lower than the previous. These candles are lower than these, as you see here. And then you break down, kind of knife out of that, which is what we're in the process of doing now. So I do not think that the bottom is in yet. It's possible it is, but I wouldn't be surprised if we come back down to test this trend again. I would not be shocked at all if we at least touch this trend. Maybe it's a wick, I don't know. But as far as the tracking goes, it still looks great. Very dragged out here, but the volume profile, OBV, everything looks good. And one other thing. I want you to sit down for a second and actually think about what I'm about to tell you. So we've been trading in this pattern for 2 years. Halting every time we came up to the resistance. Bottom support, perfect touch points here, breakout, and now a perfect retest on this trend. So over the past month, from this breakout, from the top here, AMC is down 90%. This retest, very drastic, down 90%, but the retest is holding up, and this is what I mean, that the bottom could possibly not be in. Could see more downside to come test this trend again. I would not be shocked to see that. We are in a worse off spot right now, stock price wise, than we were during COVID, which makes absolutely no sense, and it doesn't have to make sense. Just from a fractal standpoint and the macro that we're going through, it does not have to make sense. But just think about this for a second. Down 90% over the past month. Weekly OBV is at all-time highs, and again, weekly OBV, or OBV in general, has been a very strong indication for upside to come in on AMC. And on the weekly, OBV broke out and retested. Volume is sitting at January and June levels right now. January and June squeeze levels. The volume on the retest is already sitting at those levels. I can't even imagine how high the volume is going to be when we actually squeeze, if we're already sitting at the levels that we saw previously for the squeezes while we're at all-time lows, retesting a macro breakout. The 8K drop today. Adam Aron can now dilute up to 40 million shares, which is good. I've gone over that already, where dilution is a good thing for us. Adam Aron diluted the float in January 2021. We squeezed. He diluted the float in June 2021. We squeezed again. And then July 2021, shareholders of AMC requested that we didn't see any more dilution until now, where the reverse split and conversion of APE into AMC has gone through, and Adam Aron can now dilute the float again up to 40 million shares, which, by the way, is more than we saw previously. The previous 2 times the float of AMC was diluted. The January squeeze, I don't know the exact numbers, but I know the January squeeze was less dilution than the June, and the move percentage-wise of January was less. So, in other words, January was the lowest dilution that we saw, and the lowest percentage move to the upside right here. And then there was more dilution, more shares diluted here in June, a higher percentage move there, and now up to 40 million shares can be diluted into the float again. The percentage move should be higher, just trends here I'm talking about. So yeah, I know that's probably a very painful day for a lot of people, myself included. Minus 40% makes no sense at all. It doesn't have to. But yeah, just moving forward, all I want to see is this trend hold up. The retest here, I want to see this trend hold up, and I want to find a bounce off. I could probably go over the tracking of GameStop, but I'm not going to bother. I've shown multiple times that AMC and GameStop are synced up pretty much perfectly. GameStop is macro-wise ready to squeeze. Had a great earnings and saw a nice move today. After hours, it's coming. It's coming soon. Just got to hang in there. So, again, 2 important dates here. Support meeting resistance of the retest on September 12th. I would not be shocked if we saw some more downside here. I'm going to be looking for a break of this trend in red. And then September 27th, roughly 2 weeks from now, this trend, the macro trend on AMC, will be hitting 0. So that is pretty much it for the video. 25 minutes in. It's a pretty long one. I'm not making any promises for making up an update video tomorrow. Unless something crazy happens, I'll just see. So catch you guys in the next one.